Hello again, everybody. This is Mr. Everything, and I'm coming at you with another Wargaming and Miniature video. In this video, we're continuing on with our German 148 Tactic models, and this model is the Christian Kruger model. He's wearing a camouflage smock, and so what we're going to do is we're going to base coat that with German Army gray-green from Warlord. I think this is also an Army painter. I think Army painter, German Army gray-green. It's not field gray. It's gray-green. All right, and that's really just going to be the base coat. And we're going to put that over his entire German smock. This is the coat underneath all the camouflage. It's kind of like a really green gray color. I don't know how to explain it. It's more gray than it is green, I think is the way to explain it. No? Yeah, I don't know. But what I'm trying to do is just paint the camouflage smock. If you get it on, and you might notice that I'm painting it on top of his gear as well. If it gets on top of his gear, don't sweat it because you haven't painted the gear yet. You're going to come back afterwards and paint the gear. So paint down in between and under the gear. Don't paint his pants. Don't paint the skin that you might have already painted. That's a really good shot of the color. Yeah, I rotate the model all around, looking at it from every different angle so that I can see if I've got every spot that needs to be got. Now, if you're curious, the primer that I used on this model is the Rust-Oleum self-etching primer. It's very close to a field gray. That's why I use it for my Germans. Whoops. Okay, so we're going to let that jacket dry before we move on to me painting under his hood. Okay, sorry, let me paint this. His little winter scarf. Balaclava, or whatever they call it. Alright, so now let me let this guy dry before I move on to the next color. Alright, now we're going to use German gray, which is a Vallejo color, for the helmet. And only the helmet. All right, his helmet is dark gray, and we're going to set that off to the side and let it dry. All right, the next color we're going to paint is the German Camouflage Black-Brown. We're using that for the combat boots. The combat boots, the lower half was predominantly the dark brown. the upper half is kind of a lighter brown gator color, so we're gonna, you wouldn't be wrong painting the entire boot this dark brown. It's just that to show the difference, we're gonna paint the upper half of the boot a lighter brown to kind of give a little bit of a contrast and show off the gator itself. All right, so you got that. All right, we're going to let that brown dry a little bit, and then we'll be right back. All right, the next color we're going to use is wood brown on Christian Kruger here. We're going to paint his wood furniture on his weapon. Which on this weapon is his stock and the foregrip. And his entrenching tool handle. As well as his canteen cover. Yep, that looks good. We're going to let him sit off to the side and dry a minute, and then we'll be back with the next colors. Okay, so now on Christian Kruger, what we're going to do is we're going to put Splinter Blotches 2 from the Panzer Aces line onto his smock. And if you notice, German Camouflage usually doesn't have rounded designs. They're almost always angular, and in this case they're very triangular. So go ahead and draw some triangles using Splinter Blotches. Be sure not to cross over into the sleeve from the jacket or the jacket onto the sleeve, because those are two separate pieces of material. They wouldn't have been, the camel pattern wouldn't have matched up. Your triangles can be in any direction. They can even be touching, but you know, just try to spread them out. It's okay if you paint over any straps or pouches. That's exactly why I'm doing it at this stage, because I still haven't painted the straps or the pouches. So the camo pattern, even if it goes over the pouch, I'm still going to paint the pouch, and then it's going to, you know, cover up the camo pattern. Wait, I think I got everything. Okay, so I got his Splinter Blotches triangles all over the place. Now I'm going to set him down, let him dry a little while, and we'll bring him back to get the next color. All right, the next color we're going to use on Christian here is Panzer Aces Splinter Blotches 1, which is a green color. And it's a very light colored green out of the bottle, but when it dries, it darkens up. Now we want to use triangular patterns as well, avoiding the brown, but also only using about half as much green as you used brown. So it shouldn't be as dominant. It's okay to cover up any of your pouches or anything because you're going to go back later and paint that. Okay, so we got a little bit of green all over the model. Now let's go ahead and put him down, let him dry for a little bit, and we'll be right back. All right, the next color we're going to use is Camouflage Beige. It's a German Camouflage Beige from Model Color. And what we're using that for primarily is the gaiters on his boots. So we're going to... And that's the top half of the boot that the pants are tucked into where the straps are. It's kind of like a biker's boot where it's got that flap and a couple of belt buckles. Okay, we're also going to do his haversack. And his ammo pouches. Now, gaiters, ammo pouches, haversack. All right, we're going to set him off to the side, let him dry a little bit, and be back to the next color. All right, the next color we're going to put on Christian here is the the polyester black green. And we're going to put that on his gas mask canister. We're also going to add that to his mess kit. And lastly, his canteen cup on the top of his canteen. All right, we're going to let that set to the side and we'll bring it back when we're ready for the next color. All right, the next color we're going to use on Christian is the black licorice. So we're going to paint his weapon, the magazine, and any other metal parts on the weapon, like the barrel. Receiver. Okay, so the metal part of the weapon, the entrenching tool cover, web belt and any exposed part of the straps that you might see, which there is one right underneath the mess kit. And the belt in the front. All right, so we're going to let this guy sit off to the side and dry for a minute, and we'll move on to the next color. All right, now on Christian, what we're going to do is we're going to use natural steel on his STG, on his weapon, right? So everywhere that's got a metal body part, we already had it painted black. So really all I'm doing is touching up the black. And I'm only putting highlights of metal. And there you go. Because leaving a little bit of black shining through is just perfect. Just like that. All right, we're going to let that dry, and then we'll be back with the next color. All right, now the next step, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put a light tone wash on there. I mixed 2 drops wash and 1 drop water, so there's some mixture. It's a 2 to 1 wash to water mixture. And we're going to completely cover the model with this wash. It's going to settle down into cracks and crevices and my fingers. It's already leaking onto my fingers. And the camera. Okay. It's getting everywhere, but that's what you want. You want it to get everywhere. You want it to be all over the model. That way, all the details, all the folds in the fabric, all the buckles and belts and everything else shines out. Set that off to the side and let that wash dry a minute. All right, the next color we're going to put on Christian here is German Camouflage Orange Ochre. And it's primarily going to be his sling. Does he have a sling? Yes, he does. Goes from the right side of the barrel under his hand along the side of the weapon. There we go. And you see a little bit of attachment point on the inside, right there where the sling goes through the barrel. Or I mean the stock. All right, so we're going to let that sit off to the side, and we'll be back in just a minute. All right, Christian, what we're going to do is we're going to put Tamiya Field Gray all around the outer edge of the base. And we are going to let that dry before we move on to the next step. Now, this outer edge is to fix any imperfections, any washes that might have dripped onto the edge of the base. There we go. Just give it a good uniform look to it now. All right, now the first step in basing this model is applying Elmer's glue to the base. I put Elmer's glue in my palette. I'm using their a Tester's synthetic brush to apply the glue to the base And I'm trying to ensure that everything that's not the model is covered up to his boots, sides, back, everything on top of this base, including this piece of sprue that's kind of sticking up. I'm going to cover that. Ensure some stones pile up against it to disguise that. Alright, now this base is covered and you can see a lot of white, and that's what you want. You want the white. Now I'm going to sprinkle some stones. And then I'm going to sprinkle talus. Whoa. Okay, now I'm going to let that set so that the talus and the ballast can soak into the glue. I'm going to give that about 30 minutes. Alright, now we're going to apply some grass, and by doing that, what we're going to use is Elmer's glue. We're going to pat it down onto the stonework in random patterns, trying not to cover the large stones we sprinkled on earlier. We're going to put this on in about 2/3 coverage of the base. Yeah, that's about 2/3. Now we're going to sprinkle the flock on top of the base. We're going to cover the entire base. We're going to let that soak into the glue for about 30 minutes before we shake anything off. Christian Kruger in the running pose. It's assault rifle, camouflage tunic, flocked base. Alright, now here is all 7. You got your 4 starters and then the 3 expansion guys. So tell me what you think about the way I painted these guys, and in the comments below. And be sure to also go back and check out my 101st Paratrooper painting videos as well. If you like these videos, go ahead and like and subscribe to my channel and continue on watching, because we're going to paint some of the terrain next. All right, and I'll catch you next time.